Is Conor McGregor ready to come back to the octagon? It sure looks that way. I'm Simon Samano, managing editor for MMA Junkie, and I'm joined right now by senior writer Mike Bohn. Mike, how you doing?
I'm good, man. It's another busy day in MMA, right?
Always. But this is a big one, so let's go ahead and get this out of the way. Let me set the scene here. We've got Conor McGregor issuing a tweet today saying that he has accepted the fight with Dustin Poirier. Dustin Poirier has been asking for this fight for the past couple weeks. Conor, of course, chimed in last week that he would do it for charity. And then we know that Dana White got involved and said he's offered it to both of them. So now we've got Conor accepting it in a tweet saying that he has today on Thursday. But there's caveats. He wants it to be before the year is over. So, Mike, why don't you go ahead and make sense of all this? Where do we stand right now with McGregor versus Poirier?
Well, I think we've known for a while, right, that McGregor wants to fight pretty badly. He's made his case for a while. He wanted to do his season. All these things didn't materialize. Obviously, the pandemic had a huge influence on that because the UFC was reluctant to book him and be giving up a $10 to $15 million gate or something like that, which Conor can pull in either a Las Vegas or a New York or something like that. So I understand them trying to delay it, and I know they originally wanted him to fight the Khabib versus Tony Ferguson winner, which we were going to get back in April, and just all these things have really delayed Conor getting back in the cage. But of course, over the past few weeks, we've seen him get louder and louder about wanting to compete. The whole Diego Sanchez storyline, and then him pitching the charity match with Poirier. So I think he does really want to fight, and he's really willing to fight almost anyone. And with the kind of public negotiation that went on there with him doing the charity bout, and as you said, Dana White offering them the fight, they did do that, but it was for January 23rd, and that's the date they were originally hoping for. And there's a lot of different elements that go into that. I know another reporter, Danny Shapiro, tweeted out today in kind of the aftermath of this Conor Dustin tweets being like, I understand why the UFC would want to have this fight in January because it's just right around a year from when the last time Conor fought, which was the Cowboy fight in January of this year. And a lot of people probably signed up to ESPN Plus for that. And you kind of want the auto renewals after 1 year, and you want all those kind of elements of having people stick around for another McGregor fight and signing up for another ESPN Plus. So I think that has something to do with it. But if you look at the lay of the land, I think this is a very good opportunity to make this fight right now. The UFC 255 card in November, they lost Cody Garbrandt out of that main event. In all respect to Deiveson Figueiredo and Alex Perez, but I don't think too many people are jumping off the couch with their wallets to be ordering a pay-per-view headlined by that, and then Valentina Shevchenko and Jennifer Maia. They need a more high-caliber fight, a pay-per-view worthy fight on there. And then in December, they lost the Usman and Burns fight. So there's that as well, where there's an opening potentially for December 12th. Now, the things that go into that as well is if it was to happen in November or December on those pay-per-views, you have other champions on those cards. Amanda Nunes is scheduled to fight Megan Anderson in December. And then we have the two title fights, women's flyweight, men's flyweight, on that 255 card in November. The UFC has shown they don't like booking Conor McGregor on cards with other title fights because that means they have to pay pay-per-view points to their champions, split the revenue between more people and all that stuff. So the UFC is reluctant to do that. I don't think Conor loves that idea either. He wants his own card. That's why when he was texting or sending those messages with Dana, he said, just create me an event, which is basically what they did for the Cowboy fight. That wasn't originally supposed to be a pay-per-view date. So there's a lot of moving parts here, but I know that he wants to fight. Dustin Poirier wants to fight, but on Dustin's side as well, yes, he says, I accept, I'm down. There's a big difference between accepting a fight and signing to have a fight. And they want Dustin Poirier to fight on UFC 254 this month. They offered him Tony Ferguson. They offered him Michael Chandler. But he made it very clear, I need to be paid my worth and I want more money. And unless they're willing to give him a new contract for the Conor fight, which you would hope they would, because obviously that's going to bring in so much revenue, that they'd be willing to pay him, whatever he deems necessary or whatever he's asking for, because the money you're going to make back off a Conor McGregor card would be that much more significant. But if they're not willing to do that, then it becomes a serious issue. I don't see Dustin Poirier just suddenly being like, hey, I wasn't willing to take this money for Tony or Michael Chandler, but I'll suddenly take it to fight Conor McGregor, which is a significantly more lucrative fight. So there's a lot of different elements here. It seems like a very, the stars are kind of aligning, but I don't know. I mean, we're so close to UFC 254, where Khabib Nurmagomedov is going to be fighting Dustin Gaethje, and they have wanted that fight, Conor versus Khabib, too, for a very long time. And if they're not able, we're so close to getting it now, are they not willing to just wait a couple more weeks until we see what happens with Khabib and Justin? And I'm sure they'd much rather have Conor fighting for a UFC lightweight title, regardless of who it was against. So a lot of interesting elements here, and I think a lot of things need to be figured out before we actually get this fight.
All right, I'm going to wade through all that, and I'm going to say this. This is the time to make the fight. This is actually the fight to make. McGregor versus Poirier 2. Rarely in the last few years have we had an instance where McGregor is out there seriously talking about wanting to come back and fight. And now we've got him. He's out there. He's put it out there. He's serious, and he knows when he wants to fight. It's November 21st or December 12th. And as you mentioned, we've lost title fight headliners. Basically, we've lost elements or entire title fight headliners to both of those cards. This is the time to do it. If you want to do right by the rankings, this is the fight to make. McGregor, I know what you're saying, and I know that the UFC and Dana specifically has said that the Khabib rematch would be huge. And they think it'll do over 2 million pay-per-view buys again, and it'll make a lot of money, et cetera, et cetera. I get all that. But if you want to do right by the rankings, this is the fight to make. McGregor shouldn't be getting a title shot after losing to Khabib the way he did, and then coming back with a 40-second finish of, I hate to say this, but a mostly washed-up Cowboy Cerrone. He doesn't deserve a title shot off of that. So this is the fight to make by the rankings. This is the fight to make, I think, for business, because McGregor coming back to fight Poirier, I think will do big numbers. It's not going to do Khabib numbers, but that's the fight to make right now. You've got two guys in their primes, two of the best in the division. I don't see how the UFC can mess this up. I really hope they can figure a way to make this happen and make it happen on one of the dates that they'd like to have happen, that Conor would like to have it happen. Am I wrong? You tell me, Mike.
No, and again, like, you listen to everything I just said there in that very long-winded answer. None of it was about, is this a good style matchup? Does the rematch make sense all these years later? Like, I didn't really even talk about the actual fight itself. It is the perfect fight to make. I think I've been beating this drum for a while, basically, since Conor beat Cowboy. I think the two fights that made the most sense for him were, at the time, were Masvidal and Poirier, if he was going to do lightweight. So, yeah, I think this fight, rankings-wise, the lay of the land in the division, it makes perfect sense. It's just when it comes to a Conor McGregor fight, there's no such thing as just, pick this guy versus this guy and book it. Like, there's a million different elements that go in that I kind of just brought up. And, there's all these different angles to getting it done, losing, splitting the pay-per-view between other champions. If you're going to put up on that card, losing the gate, all that kind of stuff. So if you could just sign a fight and we were in a normal circumstance, this fight would make all the sense in the world. I just wonder if they're going to be able to get through all these potential issues and give the fight that I think all the fans want, both the fighters seem to want. And as you said, for the rankings, the title picture, giving legitimacy, all that kind of stuff, it makes perfect sense. Conor McGregor beats Dustin Poirier. No one can say a damn thing about him getting another title shot.
Nothing. Nobody can.
So that's, to me, it is the very logical fight, the perfect fight to make. But this is not the fight the UFC's wanted. This just came up because McGregor and Poirier have seemingly kind of worked together a little bit to force themselves into this situation. But I just wonder, with that Khabib-Gaethje fight just lingering every day, it's a bit closer and we're nearly almost there. And I wonder what's going to happen if they might make the fight for December, but I wonder if they're going to wait 2 weeks, because maybe, Khabib wins, but he suffers a broken hand or cracks his orbital or is injured and isn't able to fight for another 8 months. Okay, well, you're not putting that McGregor-Khabib fight or him versus anyone else together anytime soon. If Gaethje wins, there's some angles there with Conor and Gaethje. They've had their back and forth. So I just wonder, I think this would be the right fight to make, but I wonder if, even if they still make it, they're just going to wait a couple weeks to see what happens at UFC 254.
As long as it gets done, strike while the iron's hot. Do right by the rankings. Make the fight the fans want. Make it happen, UFC. We all want to see it.